Hey, what's happening, guys? It's Todd from Valve News Network, and today I'm going to be talking about all the unused and unreleased content for Portal 2. Here we go. Now, before we get to the content found within the game's files, it is important that I talk about f-stop. Now, in case you don't know what that is, f-stop started as a design experiment that Valve put together after the release of the Orange Box. Now, at this point, Valve split up into a bunch of different teams, and each team was to create a different design experiment, or a different game experience. One of those design experiments was under the name f-stop. Now, although we don't know exactly what f-stop ended up being, it is stated that during the presentation of this experiment, Gabe absolutely loved it. Gabe loved it so much that he decided to turn f-stop into a sequel to Portal. And for the first 6 months of development, Portal 2 was using the gameplay mechanic found in f-stop. Now, this of course meant that in Portal 2, there were no portals, and there was no portal guns. Instead was this new puzzle gameplay mechanic that apparently was incredibly entertaining. The story of the game was supposed to take place during the 80s, during Cave Johnson's ownership of Aperture Science. A lot of development went into assets and different creations of environments and characters that would only be seen in this 80s f-stop environment. Cave Johnson himself was supposed to be the antagonist and started out as a southern billionaire type person, and there was no Chell. Instead, you played as a different character named Mel. Other characters that were left out of this f-stop version of the game was the gyroscopic liability absolver and disk operating system, otherwise known as Betty, and at some point in the game, a chicken was supposed to be a boss. As you can see here, the aesthetic that the game was going for was a much more retro feel, and you could see some of this in the later levels of Portal 2 in the underground. Now, during a presentation that Doug Lombardi and Eric Wampa put on, some unused content from Portal 2 could be seen, some of which was from the f-stop period. The following was the original opening of f-stop as seen at the keynote. The only other big concept left out of the game that we know about are mannequins. Mannequins somehow acted as the turrets of the game and had their own odd AI. Mannequins can be seen in a lot of concept art, and how they actually work isn't really known to the public. Now, the gameplay of f-stop has been left secret by Valve, as Valve feels they will one day revisit the idea, but what I think f-stop was a game about changing light and angle of cameras, as f-stop is a camera term, and aperture is also a camera term. Also, within some of the f-stop concept art, you see the same scene drawn twice, but one version of the drawing is lighter than the other. Playtesters of this version of the game loved the gameplay mechanic, but always asked the same question, which was, where were the portals? Which made Valve completely nix the idea of f-stop and went back to the drawing board and created another Portal sequel, complete with portals, Chell, and GLaDOS. Once work began on the f-stopless Portal 2, a lot of different gameplay elements were added almost immediately. The gels, lasers, and light bridges were added, along with some that were never really used in the final game, like the Pneumatic Diversity Vent. The Pneumatic Diversity Vent was shown at E3 2010 and had its own trailer. It was supposed to be a gameplay element that used a vacuum tube to suck in different enemies and items. Other unused puzzle elements include the adhesion gel and reflection gel. The adhesion gel was purple, and it was supposed to let the players stick to walls and walk around. This was taken out due to causing motion sickness within players. The reflection gel was supposed to reflect lasers, but it was completely taken out and replaced with the reflection cubes. At the same keynote that showed the original f-stop intro, Eric Wampa introduced another intro that was a very early development intro test that was used during the period of time right after they nixed f-stop. This is that intro.
Activated. Hello. You have been detained in the relaxation vault for
9 0 0 0 4 0.
Entry mode activated. Target acquired.
Hey, what's going on over there?
I don't see nothing.
Why am I not surprised?
Critical error. Critical error. Do you smell something burning?
Originally, the player was supposed to meet many cores, and not just Wheatley in the game, and each core was supposed to have their own intricate backstory. The ones that we know about currently are the Paranoid Sphere,
I think I'll just try right in there. Boom, boom, boom. Yeah, well, I guess you won't be doing that, will you? Not here, you won't. Not on my watch. You can really count on that. Oh, yes. Oh, yes, indeed. I can assure you of that.
I'd love to see someone get in here. I'd dearly love to see that.
I am absolutely just teetering on the precipice here, lady. Put me down or I will go mental and people will get hurt. Oh, fuck me. You monster! You're killing me! Put me down, because I doubt very much that you are prepared for the terrible consequences of me going mental, which I swear to God is this close to occurring
and the Morgan Freeman Sphere, which was a sphere that was left in one 10x10 room for hundreds of years, and he was very wise about that one 10x10 room. But once you remove him from that room, he becomes incredibly exacerbated and very, very stupid. It is also worth stating that Wheatley's voice actor went through a couple of iterations. The person first considered for the part of Wheatley was Richard Ayoade, the guy that played Morris Moss on the It Crowd. The only real unused enemy that can be found within the game's code is called the Hover Turret, and it was supposed to be a turret that obviously hovered in place and could hover around. The reason this was taken out is because giving the ability for a turret to walk around a level kind of takes out the entire point of a turret, which is supposed to stand in place and act as a puzzle mechanic, not so much as an enemy. There was also a completely scrapped competitive multiplayer mode called Football. Football was a game where the two players had a ball that would explode with contact on any surface, and there would be 2 or 4 players competing with portal guns that would try to use the football to frag other players. Also in this multiplayer mode, you were supposed to be playing as humans and not robots. Later, when the multiplayer changed from competitive to cooperative, the original storyline for the cooperative gameplay was supposed to be the robots finding human artifacts. There are some leftover voice acting lines from this stage in the game, and the first artifact the player would have to find would be a somewhat Garfield comic that's seen here. Along with the unused dialogue for the cooperative storyline, there is a lot of other unused GLaDOS, Caroline, Cave Johnson, and Wheatley dialogue that is just everywhere. I'm not going to be putting it here because there's so much of it, but just a quick Google search will show you just how much unused dialogue there was for Portal 2. Lastly, I would like to be able to point out that if you go into the scripts folder of Portal 2, there are actually unused storylines found within those scripts. One of which was from when Cave Johnson was still kind of the antagonist, as his personality was dumped inside of a robot, and your job was to be able to kill that robot and use the corpse of Cave Johnson as a companion cube. The final thing I want to talk about is that Valve originally intended Portal 2 to have many alternate endings. The first of these alternate endings was to take place very, very early on in the game, when the player was supposed to see a moon up in the sky, and if they were to portal to that moon, they would immediately be sucked out, and Exile of Vilify by the National would immediately start playing and credits would roll. This was taken out because absolutely every single one of the playtesters completely ignored it, and Valve thought, why even put the effort into these alternate endings if nobody is going to find them? Anyways, that was all the unused content for Portal 2 that I could actually find. If I missed anything, please tell me in the comments and send me on a wild goose chase to find others, and if I can find enough, I'll make a part 2 to this video. This video ended up being one of the longest videos I've ever made, so I had to at least make it somewhat decently short. Thanks for watching, guys. If you like this video, like it, comment, share it, favorite, subscribe if you want to see other videos like this. That's all I make. Valve is my life. Anyways, thanks for watching. I'm Tyler McVicker. This is Valve News Network. Adios.